Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to this meeting of the Finance, Regeneration and Property Scrutiny Select Committee. For the benefit of those watching on YouTube channel, our apologies this evening. We are having some video issues. You will be able to see some of the members, but you won't be able to see the chair and a number of the officers. So our apologies for that. Members of the committee are present in the chamber, and these members will be voting on proposals this evening. Other members of the council are also in attendance and or participating via MS Teams and can take part in any discussions, ask questions, but cannot vote. Your attention is drawn to agenda item 1, which sets out the guidance on how meetings will be conducted, including the ground rules. Before we start the formal business, we're going to confirm attendance of voting members by doing a roll call, and I'll ask Vicky to do that, please.
Thank you. Councillor Benison.
Present.
Councillor Bishop.
Present.
Councillor Boxall.
Present.
Apology has been received from Anna, who's been substituted by Councillor Davis.
Present.
Councillor Chapman.
Present.
Councillor Clokey.
Present.
Councillor Harman.
I'm here, present.
Councillor Palmer.
Present.
Councillor Parry.
You sent her apologies. I'm substituting. You emailed. Thank you.
Councillor Pilgrim.
Present.
Councillor Rhodes.
Here.
Apology has been received from Councillor Tanner, who's been substituted by Councillor Hudson.
Present.
Councillor Williams.
Present.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vicky. We've covered apologies for absence, and just to confirm, Councillor Hudson is standing in for Kim Tanner, Lee Athwell standing in for Bethan Parry, and Dave Davis standing in for Rob Cannon. So we'll move on to declarations of interest. I understand there is one declaration from Martin Coffin.
Thank you. Whilst I'm not taking part as a voting member of the committee, I do have an interest in the item concerning the funding. That is, I think, Jeremy's next item. We were the beneficiaries of some money.
Thanks, Martin. On to item 5 minutes. Is everybody happy for us to for me to sign the minutes for the last meeting? Great. Thank you very much. Let me deal with that. Okay, on to item number 6, outside bodies update, West Kent Partnership, and I believe Jeremy is going to quickly run us through that one.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Yeah, I wasn't going to say a huge amount, other than just flagging up the work during 25-24 of the West Kent Partnership, and it's really two main projects. One is the West Kent Business Support Programme, and the offer that's providing small businesses within the borough, and the other one is the West Kent Rural Grant Scheme, which Councillor Coffin was just alluding to. So the West Kent Business Support Programme is aimed at providing additional support to small businesses, micro businesses, startup businesses. We have a relatively high what they call death rate after 3 years of businesses. It's probably around about 35% death rate for businesses after 3 years, which is probably about average for the southeast, but is a bit higher than the national average. So this is really just to help businesses over that sort of initial difficult period, the first couple of years in business predominantly, but it has been accessed by a number of small businesses, and as you can see in the figures there, it supported over 700 businesses by the end of the 24-25 financial year. That was a combination of attending webinars, events, networking, but also in terms of mentoring and small small levels of finance as well. And also we had the large West Kent Expo event in March at the River Centre. The programme is actually continuing into 25-26 as well. So if councillors are aware of any businesses, certainly small businesses in their patch that are struggling or could benefit from mentoring support or small sort of grant funding, then I'm more than happy for them to sort of pass them in my direction in order to access that scheme. The other one is as I mentioned, the West Kent Rural Grant Scheme. We distributed over £400,000 worth of capital funding to rural communities and businesses in 24-25. The good news is that we do have money this financial year as well. There's capital grants of up to 20,000 available. We have had one deadline pass for applications for that scheme, but we should still have money available for the possibly next 2 rounds. The next deadline is the 1st of August for any rural communities or businesses that are interested in accessing capital funding. So yeah, again, if you know of any within your patch, if you cover a rural ward, then I'm more than happy to sort of answer any queries or sort of provide any sort of information for businesses that you think might benefit. But that's all I really wanted to say on it, Chairman.
Thanks, Jeremy. I don't see any. I do see one hand, Lee.
Yeah, I was just going to say thank you. It's great. I think the work is really good supporting the businesses. I was just wondering whether, I know you have to report back on how you've used the funds at some point. Do we get to see that? Because, I mean, it sounds great, it's lovely, but it's all presumably to try and make sure that we get more work in the borough and businesses don't shut. So I'm just wondering how some of them do that. Because I assume it's not just about making the business owner make more money.
I mean, in terms of sort of appraising the whole programme, we are sort of undertaking a sort of review of the programme in its entirety, the UKSBF programme and the Rural England Prosperity Fund programme, and we're also being audited on it by internal audit at the moment. So there's probably quite a bit of information that we're sort of gathering at the moment that I'm more than happy to sort of make available, which covers sort of a range of outputs and outcomes that we have to provide central government with. So if that is of interest, then I'm more than happy to sort of share that information.
Thanks, Jeremy. Martin.
As someone who's declared the interest and been in the receipt of this, I can say that as it's a capital project that this money went to, it's proving that as a company we are likely to be recruiting 2 new people to work for us in the countryside. So as in terms of an output, it's a very small amount of money to secure possibly 2 jobs in the future.
Fantastic. Thanks very much. Anybody else? Okay, well, as that was an information item, we will move on to item number 7, Digital and IT Strategy Progress Update. And members are requested to note the progress made. So I'll let Ganesh introduce this item, and please take note.
Thank you, Chair. Members are aware of the digital strategy that got launched straight after the administration was elected in. So the strategy runs for 4 years. It's from 2023 to 2027. So we are at a midpoint where it's a good place for us to take a look back on the progress. Members have been updated on a progress on an annual basis, but this is the second update that we are giving. The strategy was drafted to underpin the the aspirations of the authority and the corporate strategy of this council. Within that, we come up with 5 principles, and we have drafted a roadmap, so members are able to visually see what is in the roadmap of the digital strategy and how we are progressing towards it. Within that, we have color-coded each priority of the authority within the strategy. So there are 5 priorities, which is secure by design and culture, transformation, demand management, efficient workforce, and economic growth. We are front-loaded in terms of the security, and that's due to the growing cyber threat that is affecting almost every business in the country. And we believe that we need to make all efforts to secure the infrastructure and the data, and some of the social engineering sides that guides us towards a good culture of managing data and processing. In that, we have achieved that between 23 to 25, and we have also made good progress in terms of the transformation aspect as well as the demand management side of things. So in summary, we have strengthened the cybersecurity measures. We have enhanced digital tools and customer experiences as a result of it, improved mobile working and digital inclusion. We've also contributed towards the environmental aspirations of these authorities' green agenda, and we have had operational benefits as a result of it. So some of the changes that we have made has made us more robust in terms of service provision. So we haven't had an outage onto our public-facing services since 2021. In terms of the outages that we have suffered prior to that, members who have been there are aware of this. This is due to the cloud strategy that we have adapted. Similarly, we have also enhanced customer experiences through launching a mobile app, as well as making sure those back-end services that sort of help us provide those experiences to our customers are kept at a high availability level, so they do not have any experience that will deter them from engaging with us on a digital channel. In terms of the cybersecurity side of things, that there is a part 2 article that I will be talking about, which will cover that in depth. Thank you.
Thanks, Ganesh. Any questions? James?
As a reference to adoption of Power BI for analytics and reporting, I assume a lot of that's built on top of Agile when it was put in, and presumably needs rework as we revert back to iDocs. How far has that set us back, and does iDocs provide the connectivity we need to recreate that?
Sure. Power BI is a reporting product of Microsoft that we have adapted way before we actually chose to use Agile. So all of the reports that were written for Agile were written by our own developers. Even the reports that they actually provided out of the box had to be tweaked by ourselves to use. So in terms of that, it hasn't set us back as such, but you're right. When we revert back to iDocs, we will have to duplicate some of those efforts that we have made. And that is one of the reasons why within this strategy, within this report, I have highlighted the impact of going back to iDocs will have certain impact on the progression on the digital strategy going from here, because we have got finite amount of resources within IT, and we are reverting back to IDOCs a priority of ours, which includes these reports. So I believe that will have an operational impact. How much of an impact is to be felt when we do cross that bridge? But what I would suggest is that we have had conflicting priorities throughout these last 3 years, and we managed to have juggled it well. And I'm hoping that it wouldn't have too much of an impact onto the authority's progression.
Thanks, Ganesh. Anything else, James? No. Anybody else? Okay. Any objections to this item being noted? Noted. Okay. Thank you very much. Then we'll move on to item 8, which is the Lower Medway Internal Drainage Board proposed merger. And I believe Sharon is going to present that.
Yeah, so it is only an information item. This was a consultation that came out. The consultation has now closed. We are waiting to find out whether it is going forward or not, but the councillor who has been appointed by the council for sitting on the drainage board is in the room, Councillor Dave Davies, and I don't know whether he wished to say anything.
I'm not sure there's very much I can say. The consultation is closed. I'm not aware of any objections, and that would be the only thing which would slow things down. It's going to DEFRA for basic approval, and I think we're looking towards the merger taking place. We were hoping to make October. I think it's going to be more likely December now.
Thanks, Dave and Sharon. I did note in there were some savings. Are we able to quantify what the savings will be?
I don't think so. I don't think so at the moment. There won't be massive. The North Kent Drainage Board quite small compared with us, so the savings will not be of a huge magnitude. But it's much more. It will be more efficient, and it will save duplication of some of the work the staff does.
Thank you very much. Okay, well, that was just for information. So we'll move on to item number 9. Again, for information, but this is the financial outturn and May 2025 budgetary report, and I think Paul is going to cover that.
Thank you, Chair. As Chairman said, it's an information item. This report has already been to Cabinet at the end of last month, but I'll try to keep it as brief as possible. The outturn position summarised at table 3.4. Full details have been given in Annex 1, which is your nice big management accounts type pack compared to the statement of accounts that the Audit Committee received last night. Overall, we were £21,000 worse off against the revised estimates, but I would say it was £43,000 better off against the original estimate. So we did pretty well. That's after making additional contributions to reserves, which have been detailed at paragraph 313. The closing balances for the reserves are shown at Annex 2. Numerous variations have been given in the report, and I'm happy to provide any further details if members wish to have any further information. Capital plan was underspent, mainly due to delays on large projects, Walden Wall being one, and the Gibson building being another. Capital renewals also, we only replace items when we need to, therefore we roll the money forward another year. Moving on to the budgetary control, current position is summarised at paragraph 4.8, that's up to the end of May. Takes into account decisions taken by members, which has been given at Annex 3. Salary monitoring is currently underspent due to vacancies within the building. Details are shown in Annex 4 on that one. Income monitoring, we're currently under recovery on income, covering land charges in planning, being offset by increased car parking income. Details are shown in Annex 5. Paragraph 4.6, Treasury management returns remain strong. That's primarily as a result of the government's Bank of England's continuation of the higher interest rate at the present time. Other variations have been given in 4.7. Moving quickly on to business rates, we are currently showing a variation of just under £200,000 against a budget of just over £4 million. That's a result of some empty properties within the borough, but I would like to point out that the final property for Panettone Park, as in Tesco's and Click, which is down at Junction 5, we have not had valued yet. The valuation office have the tendency to take a bit of time over these valuations, and we might be lucky if we get them in this year or even next year. But at the present time, I'm hopeful that we will be back on target by the end of the financial year. Finally, capital expenditure. We are early in the year, so we've got very little going on, but as you might have seen, we are beginning the work on the Gibson building. The expenditure is likely to increase. Just finally moving on to the annual service delivery plan and the MTFS funding gap. The council got a £600,000 target for this financial year. Members will be receiving a report in September detailing the first 300,000 that we've identified on that report. The remaining balance will be identified during the budget process for the end of the financial year. We've started a larger exercise to address the wider gap as it stands. That involves the Director of Finance in her last weeks before she goes. Her last meeting on that is tomorrow afternoon. Service directors, service managers, and the Chief Executive and Finance team. We are going through everything to provide you with a list of options for you to consider for long-term savings. Happy to provide any further details. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Paul. Any questions? Lee.
Just a real quickie on Annex 5. So our short stay car parking, we're 12.5 grand down, even though we put the rates up. Is that right? I got that right? I get all confused with brackets and
short stay car parking is down, long stay is up. The budget split between the two, we've recognised we haven't got right. We're looking to redress that over the next few months, and we will certainly be changing it in the revised estimates.
Okay.
So overall,
both together we're 27 grand up.
We are better off overall. It's just the fact the split between the two, which we're trying to work it through.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Anybody else? Okay, well, again, as that was for information, we'll just move on to item number 10, which is consultation fair funding review 2.0. And again, I think Sharon is going to present this one.
I am indeed. So it is for information. It is the second consultation in this iteration of the fair funding review. So those who've been around for a while will know that we've had other iterations of fair funding in the past, but this is the latest iteration. Despite the consultation document, if you clicked on the link, being over 100 pages long, actually it gives you no figures whatsoever about what the impact would be on any particular authority, and that is not expected to happen and be available until late September, beginning of October. We've got to wait until then to find out what the figures would look like. One thing that we do know is that the proposal includes the deletion of New Homes Bonus, which is a grant stream that this council has benefited from for a number of years, albeit it has been in decline in more recent years. But the other thing is that some other specific grants are going to be rolled into what they call the settlement funding assessment, which is the big conglomerate of grant funding. In other words, they won't be specifically stated that this is how much you've got for homelessness or whatever else. It's all going to be rolled into one. And that does become a bit murky when you roll on a few years. It's fine at the beginning, but when you move on in time, it becomes a little bit murky to work out just how much they were supposed to be for a specific area. The intention, from what I can read, is that it is still the intention that whatever comes out of this consultation will happen for 26-27, i.e. next financial year. So the budget that will be set next February will be based on the new regime under the fair funding review. The consultation itself ends on the 15th of August, so there's still a little bit of time for us to get an answer sheet together. And I'm afraid that's going to be the responsibility of new head of finance alongside the cabinet member for finance to actually pull that together and get that sent off. And I have suggested that perhaps this committee would like to see the finished product at their meeting in September, just so that. So I think the final thing to say is, if any of you, if you've managed to read this 100 and odd page document, if you do have any particular points that you would wish to make, please let either Paul or Martin know so they can take that into account. Thank you.
Much, Sharon. Any questions? James.
Just on that point of eliminating a number of the grants and rolling them into the main settlement, do we anticipate that there's going to be any significant saving in officer time in terms of no longer having to go through grant application processes?
Yeah, so these are grants that are allocated directly, so you don't actually have to apply for them, but they come to us specifically and it says this is for homelessness, this is for something else, etc., etc. You don't apply for them, you're just given them, but you know exactly how much was allocated towards that, but now they're going to be rolled into the main lump of grant that we get.
Thanks. Sharon, Tim?
How would we allocate for homelessness? Is that good? Okay, I'll stop asking these questions.
That's a really good question. Really good question. Now, to start with, I think it's going to be fairly easy. Yeah. It's, as I said, it all becomes very murky the further into the future you get, because you can't, grants change over time. Governments don't necessarily give you an increase that's commensurate with CPI, for example, whatever, or there's cuts or whatever. And then you've got to try and work out, well, what does that mean? What would have been the homelessness grant or whichever other grant? So it's, yeah, it's fine at first, but it gets harder.
You may.
Let's work. Actually, more work for officers, because it's going to be murkier. And yeah.
Fine, yeah.
Aaron, can I ask a question? I guess at the moment, if we get a figure of X for homelessness, we are expected to spend that on homelessness. Do we spend more than that, or are we penalised for spending less than that? We don't know what the figure is, and we just say, well, we haven't got any money for homelessness, and therefore we can't spend it. I assume that's the murkiness you're talking about, but it just seems to be a bit awkward.
So, the grant we get for homelessness is not enough, say, for homelessness. So the council tax is supporting costs of homelessness. But yes, you're absolutely right that you are told this is your grant for homelessness. You must spend it on homelessness. And of course we do, because we're spending more than that. But in due course, that becomes murky.
Thank you. Okay, anybody else? Okay, well, again, as that was for information, I think we'll move on to item 11. Another information only item, but consultation on modernising and improving the administration of council tax. And I think this is going to be presented by Will.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Yes, this is an information report. It's to inform members about a consultation that's been launched by central government. It was launched on the 20th of June, and it includes some proposals that they have to change or modernise the council tax system. There are various proposals that they put in this consultation. They're laid out below paragraph 3.4, and they vary from things like changing the instalments that people are expected to pay. They're all talking about altering potentially the timeline for recovery and enforcement of debts, and a few other things in there as well. We intend to formulate a response to that and get it submitted. That will be done in conjunction with the Cabinet Member for Finance, Waste and Technical Services. And in that response, it's going to be really important that we give due regard to the financial implications of the proposals, particularly around things like cash flow to the council, but also how any of these potential changes would affect the residents of the borough and also the ease of administration of council tax internally. The consultation is due to close on the 12th of September this year, by which time Tunbridge Molling's response will have been submitted, and the response that is submitted will be reported back to members on a future date. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Will. Anybody got any questions? I've got an observation that I think moving from a standard of 10 payments to 12 payments is going to have a fairly major effect on our cash flow, and this did come up in the pre-meeting meeting yesterday, and it's going to cause some internal issues. I don't know if anybody else has got any other comments on that, really. Sarah.
I think I'd personally prefer 12 payments rather than 10. But equally, my daughter gets paid 13 times a year every 4 weeks. So she's always very grateful for a month where she doesn't actually have to pay the mortgage, etc. So you just have to be a bit careful. But on balance, I think 12, once every month, because suddenly you think, oh, hold on, why have I got more money in the bank? Oh, yeah, it's because my council tax didn't come out. So yes, yeah. I'm happy with 12. Thanks.
I tend to agree, and I've always paid mine over 12 months. But as the bulk of people pay them over 10 months, the council get their money 10 months rather than 12. But anyway.
Yeah, I can just answer. Sorry. Oh, sorry.
No, go for it, Will.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say I can just add to the points that were made there. At the moment, people do have the right to pay their council tax over 12 months. The default is 10, but people, if they request to us either in writing or via our online form, they can go to a default of 12 currently. But it's just that the standard default is 10. So the option is there at the moment, but the government are obviously seeking views on whether it should be switched the other way around.
Thanks, Will. Martin.
Thank you. I should have said earlier, of course, I'm not a member of the committee. By going from 10 to 12 months payment on council tax, on the face of it, looks like a good idea. And on the face of it, looks like it's helpful to the residents. But actually, those that can't afford to pay and those that have difficulty in paying council tax, if they're paying over the 10 months, there are 2 months when, of course, they're not paying council tax, technically, but we might be able to recover from them the debt so that they're not sliding further and further into debt, as I believe they would if the payments were taken over 12 months, because if they become in arrears on month 12, there's no slack left in the system for them to catch up again. Whereas if they come into arrears on month 10 under the 10-month system, of course, there's 2 months in which they can catch up with the council tax. So I have a problem agreeing to going to 12 months as default, because I actually think it's going to be more difficult for a lot of the those that find it hard to pay the council tax to successfully pay the council tax and remain out of debt. So for what it's worth, that's my thoughts on that. Thank you.
Thanks, Martin. I tend to agree with you as well. Tim.
Chair, I mentioned this is possible adverse effect to our cash flow. Do we know the percentage or the numbers of 12 or 10 month payees in the council tax system?
The exact numbers I don't have off the top of my head, unfortunately. What I would say is that the number that so far that have opted to pay over 12 months by default is a very small percentage overall. The vast majority have either chosen to continue to pay over 10 or certainly haven't taken action to make it over 12. So it seems, from what we can see, it seems to work for most people to continue to pay over 10. I think some residents like to have those 2 months where the extra, where the council tax payment doesn't come out. But there are some obviously who do prefer 12, but that option is currently available to them as well.
Thanks, Will. Anybody else? Okay, well, again, as that was for information, we will move on to the work programme. The work programme is set out in the pack, and I would ask if anybody's got anything they want to add to that, they just pop us through an email, if that's okay with everybody. I don't have any urgent items, but I am going to propose that we stop the feed and move into part 2 with the exclusion of press and public. So if I could get a seconder to that, and then we'll move on to that item, Mark Rhodes. Thank you very much. Everybody agreed? Thank you. So if we can just stop the YouTube feed, please. My apologies, I was waiting for somebody to tell me that, but that's all